Welcome. In 1978, Gary Gygax sent D&D players on a grand quest through the dark hollows of the earth in adventure module D1 and D2, Descent into the Depths of the Earth, introducing also these new subterranean civilizations to D&D. And now the Arcane Library is introducing their own lightless realm beneath the earth, a tenebrous region called Morzomotha. So hold tight. Today we're going to review Cursed Scroll 5, Dwellers into the Deep, and ourselves delve into the abominable depths of Morzomotha. Welcome, I'm John. This is a place I like to talk about Shadowdark, because that's what I'm playing a lot right now, and old school Dungeons & Dragons. I love to bring those two together as much as possible. If that appeals to you, please consider subscribing to my channel. It's helping my channel grow. And then my videos will always pop up on your dashboard. You won't miss them. Thank you. So as I mentioned, D1 and D2, this is like the OG module for traveling deep into the earth. And since that time, the underground has become populated with drow elves, brain eaters or mind flayers, fishmen. And later in the 80s, it came to be known as the Underdark. Besides that D series of modules, it's been covered in things like Night Below and Out of the Abyss. The Underdark has been a staple of D&D adventures now for almost 40, 50 years. And Cursed Scroll 5 is the Arcane Library's first foray into the deep earth. So that's what we're going to look at today, Cursed Scroll 5, Dwellers in the Deep. Now, these Cursed Scrolls, they're zines. They're modular expansions to the Shadowdark core rules. In general, they contain new character classes, usually some gameplay elements, monsters, a hex crawl region, and a dungeon. Cursed Scroll 5, it has all of those and more, but the real standout here, at least for me, is the dungeon in this one. It's a large, sprawling 2-level dungeon, and it's a high-level dungeon, right? We don't get a lot of content for any game targeted at high-level play, and this is an extraordinary 2-level dungeon targeted at 8th-level characters. So we'll cover all that and more today. I should point out also, Cursed Scroll 5 is digital only right now. So it's part of the Western Reaches Kickstarter. The digital edition's been released to backers of the Kickstarter. If you missed out on the Kickstarter, hold tight. The physical product should be out in a couple months, and then this stuff will be widely available on the Arcane Library website. Before we dive into Morzomotha, though, there's something important that we need. Yes, people need characters. So let's start with looking at what kind of new character classes are introduced in Cursed Scroll 5. It comes with 2 of them that are themed for an Underdark type campaign. Well, first, let me ask a question. When you imagine a trip into the mythic underworld, something large that could take weeks or months of plumbing the depths of the earth, like what jumps to your mind as a problem for it? Well, in Shadowdark terms, that's going to be things like light, torches, lanterns, oil, and just stuff in general. Do you have enough food? Do you have enough gear? Resource management's a big part of Shadowdark, so stuff matters. And the first new character class, the Delver, is all about the stuff. So let's take a look. The Delver, his signature ability is Scavenger. First off, it's a D6 class. It can use light armor, light weapons. So it sets up to be a melee or ranged character, kind of a light fighter with some signature abilities around stuff. The first one, Scavenger. Basically, when you run out of a consumable item, roll a dice. There's a 1/3 chance that's actually not the last one. Down along the way, maybe it wasn't on your inventory, but you had found an extra, and so you didn't run out. So you take your last oil out of your backpack, roll a d6 on a 1/3 chance, 5 or a 6. Oh, actually, I had a second oil in there. And you get to keep going. So on a long delve where you're going to be running out of stuff all the time. This character can actually pay back the rest of the party quite a bit in scavenging. It has a bunch of skills that would help exploration. The one thing that really jumped out at me is that ability to decipher and understand new languages. This is actually sorely missing in Shadowdark. In old school D&D, typically the thief had a read languages capability. That's not part of the Shadowdark thief skill set. And there's no comprehend or read languages spells in the game yet. So the Delver becomes like the first archaeologist type explorer that can like read those unreadable runes or scripts. So big thumbs up from me. And then its last ability is Trusty Gear. This gives the Delver the possibility of really specializing perhaps in a weapon. You know, they're a crack shot with their trusty crossbow. And I think this helps them carry their weight as an attacker as well. The next character class takes a slightly darker turn. Imagine what kind of character would be at home in a sanity bending, mind numbing depths of the Underdark. It's the Weirdling. It's basically a mutant, like some kind of person that's been corrupted by Lovecraftian horrors. They've got like a protoplasmic body that can squeeze under doors and stuff, stretch and form pseudopods and claws. So they've got like kind of a melee attack. And one of their talent abilities is corruptions, where their body develops weird mutations like breathing, gills, so they can breathe underwater, or humped backs, and a whole bunch of weird stuff. Again, it's probably acts as a secondary attacker, a lightweight fighter with a big side of weirdness. I don't know that I love it, but I guarantee if I put this in my game, one of my players would be like, oh, I want to be the weird guy who can stretch and grow claws. My general verdict on these two classes, I really love the Delver. I think this class, okay, I love the Delver, but I love it for a specific type of campaign. So it depends what you're doing. If you're running games where the dungeons are all like right around a town, and so they go out to the dungeon, they return to town, there's not a lot of pressure on equipment and supplies. Yeah, the Delver's not great. But if you're running an expedition type game, maybe West Marches style, where the players are going to be going out and hex crawling for days or weeks, maybe like in the jungle area, a River of Night, I think the Delver's really going to shine. And especially if you're going down into the Underdark, or in this case, the Shadowdark. In two of the other new curse scrolls, we got introduced to spells for lawful wizards, who are mages, neutral wizards, called druids in Shadowdark, and now come the chaotic wizards, the sorcerers. And these sorcerer spells fall into three themes. I call them the 3Ds. There's domination effects that affect the mind of the opponent. There's dismemberment effects that rip arms off people and inflict horrible wounds. And then defilement, which feels like a call out to Dark Sun, or a callback, I should say, to Dark Sun. And my games typically don't feature people wanting to play chaotic wizards, but I think they'd have a lot of fun with these spells if they did. Domination, just like it sounds, there's a bunch of spells here that allow them to affect people's minds. Dismemberment, yeah, it does what it says. There actually is a literal dismemberment spell. I guess you get to yell out "Sectum Sempra" from time to time. And then the defilement spells, like if you look at the two that are shown here, they both allow you to drain the life from the ground around you to power your magic for a short period of time. Really flavorful and really interesting if you're going to play an evil wizard. So we've talked about taking an arduous journey beneath the ground itself, and you're going to need stuff. So what kind of new equipment are we getting here in Curse Scroll 5? Let's take a look. So here's the list of new gear. There's useful things that will be helpful in just about any dungeon delve. Things like the ball bearing, holy water, charcoal, or the lantern hook. So you can carry those lanterns on your belt if you're a sword and board fighter. There's a few things that might be useful for that deep shadow dark, like the flash seeds or the glow paste. The one that really stood out to me, though, that I think is going to be a workhorse for this type of campaign, the Traveler's Lamp. All right, so if you think of how Shadow Dark typically works, dungeon crawling, light torches, light spells. Light spells last an hour, torches last an hour, oil lasts an hour, and you're going into the Underdark or the Shadow Dark for weeks. You're going to need some kind of a light source. The Traveler's Lamp solves that by burning oil at a slow pace, but it only grants feeble light. So it's enough to see your feet and to travel through these underground passages. It's not really enough to camp or fight with. But it only consumes one oil per day. So I think there's going to be this interesting dynamic in Morzomotha where characters have traveler's lamps. They're burning one oil per day for their long distance travel. But if there's any wandering encounters along the way, and we're dropping out of like hex crawl travel into combat rounds, or they're exploring an area and we're dropping into crawling rounds, the players are going to have to switch light sources over to something much brighter. And so there's going to be a little vulnerable period there where they don't quite have enough light to really engage with whatever's attacking them or whatever they're encountering. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works in a real game. Okay, now we're going to switch to the part of the zine where it's mostly referee reference stuff. So pause, put up a quick spoiler warning. Listen, I'm not going deep on anything in the back half of the book. This is just an overview of the Cursed Scroll. Spoilers are light, but I figured let's put it out there in case you're really concerned as a player. All right, so we've established that there's new classes that are gearing up for spending a lot of time in the Shadow Dark. There's equipment that's going to help us spend weeks of travel down there. How big really is Morzomotha? Let's take a look. So here's the map. And since I was talking about D1 and 2, my poor beat up but beloved copy of that one, let me superimpose the D1 to D2 map on there so we get a sense of size. Morzomotha is using 6-mile hexes, but they're very large hexes. D1 to D2 is using 1-mile hexes. And you can see there's probably like 2.5, or Morzomotha is probably like 2.5 the size of D1 to D2 to put it in perspective. And like when we played Descent into the Depths of the Earth back in the day, you would enter it at the bottom of the Fire Giant's citadel. You'd have to travel to the Vault of the Drow. And it's, I don't know, 50 miles or something, 50, 60 miles. You're traveling 6 miles a day, so it's going to be 9 or 10 days to get there. And Morzomotha is considerably larger, considerably more twistier. I think players are going to be wandering this thing for weeks, if not months, when they go down there. And that really speaks to what the theme is here, is it's huge sizes. Lovecraftian horrors and madness abound down there. Hex crawling through this will reinforce Shadow Dark's core themes around light and resources and equipment. It has a mythic feeling to it. Like this feels like a mythic underworld, right? That's a popular phrase in the OSR. But in this case, and we'll take a look at a few hexes in a second, many of the hexes include things that have world-changing effects. Lots of legendary artifacts down here, clues pointing to the existence of the lost gods, like big things that the players will find that will have profound impact on the surface world. And to me, that really underlines like this mythic quality of more. There's also an important environmental effect, which is the madness. And in Shadow Dark, it's called the chittering. So anytime a character spends several months in the Underdark, they're going to lose 1d4 charisma. And in this case, we're using charisma as a stand-in for sanity, willpower, strength of personality. As it erodes and gets lower and lower, you start drifting towards insanity. And in addition to just losing charisma points from spending too much time in the Underdark, there's lots of things the players will encounter or see that will erode their charisma as well. So inevitably, they're facing this sort of attrition battle if they spend too much time in the underworld. The only way to cure the chittering, this charisma loss, is by returning to the surface and getting back into natural sunlight. There's tons of great plot hooks to get player characters down into Morzomotha. That is actually named for these Morzomoths. We're going to see them as monsters in a little bit. Their silk is extremely valuable. I've already mentioned that there's tons of artifacts. Okay, maybe not tons. There's several artifacts down here, including probably one of the most powerful magic swords we've seen in Shadowdark. That's enough to lure any high-level party down there. And then a lot of players seem to be intrigued by this concept of the lost or the missing gods. And so being on the quest to identify who are the lost could probably get players down into the Underdark as well. I think the number one reason, and we'll see this when we talk about the dungeon, is players will want to find the Library of... Here, to give you a flavor of what Morzomotha is like, though, let's take a look at a page that has two areas that I really love. This one, the Nightbound Sea, down beneath this underground sea, at the very bottom of the ocean, is a chained god, one of the lost. It's surrounded by aboleths and brain eaters and all sorts of shadow darky type monsters, just waiting there to be discovered by the players. Again, that gives you the idea of sort of like the epic things that are laying around in Morzomotha. And then the other one is like, take a look at that city of Grisengast. Now, there's a few new species that are introduced into Morzomotha. These guys, the Dremir, picture them almost like bat people. They've got like no eyes, acute hearing, so they probably have big ears. They're carnivores, but they're highly cultured, a sorceress race, and they accept visitors into their city of Grisengast for 3 days. And after 3 days, it's fair game for the citizens of Grisengast to descend on their guests and devour them. It's super interesting. It also gives you an idea of like what this hex crawl is like and what it would take to really run it. Because you're going to want, like, if you're going to use Grisengast, you're going to want to embellish it. Perhaps come up with a map. What are the things that players are going to want to see and do? It's a highly cultured society with sorceress secrets and exquisite crafts. So there's probably lots of things players would want in the city. At the same time, the Dremir probably don't want people to leave. So what do they call it? Like a honey trap? I picture Grisengast full of like places like the Lotus Eaters from the Odyssey, where they want visitors to the city to sort of forget about time and get distracted by, I don't know, pleasures and shopping and all sorts of things, and kind of lose track of, oh no, we're approaching 3 days. We need to get out of here before they eat us. Really interesting. All of Morzomotha is full of what I would call dark wonders like that, except it will take some work for the referee to embellish and develop. So one question is, how can the Arcane Library set their Shadowdark version of the Underworld apart from what's come before? Well, a big way of doing that is through a bestiary and introducing some new subterranean species and civilizations. I've already mentioned about the bat-like Dremir. There's these things called the Gnome. They're insane underground dwellers. I think all the explorers that get lost down there and go insane probably devolve into Gnome. But the two I want to take a look at here are the Morzomoths and then the Librarians of Leng. So Morzomoths, they're described as longboat-sized. It's a little bit of a head scratcher. In Shadowdark, the Viking longship, which is 20 to 30 feet long, the size of a school bus, uh, it's actually called a longboat. So when we say that the Morzomoths are longboat sized, they're actually like bus sized. So they're like these Mothra sized moths. If you look at the stat block, yeah, they're mid level and they've got these claw attacks, but it's that wing ability called wing dust that's horrifying, where they're draining constitution from their opponents or draining hit points if they fail a constitution check. So you've got 30 hit points, you've got 40 hit points. After round one of fighting them, you're down to 15. The next round, if you're in close range, you're getting sucked by the wings. You're down to 7, and then 3, and then 1. These things are terrifying to stand up against. And while the wings can't drop you below 1 hit point, those claws certainly will. Hey, the next monster to take a look at this, the Librarian of Leng. They're described as fiendish. They cover their eyes and ears, cutting off their senses from the world. I picture that they all look like this guy, the mouth of Sauron with those grinning, fiendish teeth. And they're described as purple fiends. And they are horrible cheater spellcasters. So player characters will only ever cast 1 spell a round, and these cheaters cast 2. And they have some great spell abilities. The one that really jumps out to me is Absorb. So as a referee, one of the most frustrating things, and you guys know what I'm talking about, is you've got a monster spellcaster and they fail their spell check. And just like a player, that means that spell is lost for the day. And then the Librarian of Leng says, oh no, you think I've lost it, but I'm going to absorb. And if successful, they suck a spell out of the player and then get to regenerate one of their own spells. I'm only joking that these guys are cheaters. Casting 2 spells around and being able to regenerate your lost spells, that's awesome. And as referees, we will have great fun with them. But the librarians do have a pretty significant weakness. If players are able to actually get close to them and knock off their head coverings, they can give them disadvantage on everything. I would love to see them try. These guys are dangerous. And finally, let's shift gears and look at the Library of Leng itself. This is a spectacular 2-level dungeon. I said it's high level, so it's targeted at 8th level characters, and it's 64 rooms. It is a combination of fortress with guardians all over the place, like high-level monster guardians, like frost trolls. It's populated by deep ones. It's a prison, and many people that enter the library don't leave. And then it's also a library. Inside the library, there are sentient books. Players can encounter books crawling along the ground, books that talk to them, books that misbehave, and the librarians impale them on stalagmites. There are rare books, and not just, when I mean rare, I mean like some of the legendary books that are in the Shadowdark core rule as special items can be found here. The fiendish librarians hoard fears, as in FEAR, like the fears of surface dwellers. So there's entire libraries in this dungeon that hold all the fears of all the living creatures in the world. And there are books where players can change reality by rewriting something in the book with magic ink. In fact, one of the quests they could get is to help someone on the surface, like a king, overcome a debilitating fear, is to travel to the library, find the book where the librarians have cataloged this ruler's fear, and rewrite it with the magic ink. So some really interesting quest ideas there. And like other kinds of powerful libraries, it appears to be the kind of place where if your players wanted to find the true name of almost any being, they could probably find it here in the Library of Leng. So it is a place of wonder and horror. There's some great plot hooks that lead to it. It could be rescuing prisoners who have tried to come to the library to steal knowledge and then got caught. by the librarians. Finding some of these lost and powerful books could be a powerful quest idea. Or, like I said, trying to either discover the fear of a powerful opponent or being hired by someone to help remove the fear. So to wrap up, how does Curse Scroll 5 compare back to the OG and Descent into the Depths of the Earth? Like I said, it's a lot larger, and the expedition component of it, I think, is going to weigh a lot more. If you remember back to like the AD&D days, there were like a lot of cheaty spells that eliminated, just like in 5e, a lot of the resource struggles when you had 8th, 9th, 10th level characters. You had continual light spells, you had things to create food, to create water, and none of those effects exist in Shadowdark. I've run some high-level Shadowdark games, and the resource management is still just as present as it was with low level. So I think the expedition side of this is going to be ever present. Tonally, D1 and D2, it's a lot more grounded. Gary wrote more naturalistically. He employed a concept we've coined, Gygaxian naturalism, and used a lot of sort of a wargaming mindset in how we presented things. And Morzomotha feels a lot more dreamlike. You know, it has that mythic underworld quality, which is just a very different tone than the OG Underdark. And then Library of Leng is this spectacular dungeon crawl. It's phenomenal to have a high-level dungeon like this for Shadowdark. I think that maybe it's not a capstone dungeon, and we should still see some 10th level dungeon from Shadowdark at some point. But this is one of those like premier dungeons I think campaigns are going to want to build up to. Now, a question you might ask, how does this rank against all the other Cursed Scrolls? I actually don't think it does. I think it's complementary. Let me explain. Most of the Cursed Scrolls, you could use them in your campaign, or they're going to become part of this future Western Reaches. And Morzomotha is not set, or I should say it's not locked anywhere specific in the Western Reaches. I think it's meant to be sort of quantum, where you can put it where you need it, which means that whatever region you're playing in, if you're playing in the jungle region or perhaps the desert region, you've got the surface hex crawl that the players are engaging with, and you can put Morzomotha complementary under that, and really use those two together to have like a really cool high-level campaign where low levels, it's a surface hex crawl and interacting with all the different things on the surface. And then when the players start approaching the mid-levels, they can start delving underneath the very same region, but now they're encountering Morzomotha. At least that's how I think about it. That's what I would want to do. Seems like a really cool way to set up a future Shadowdark campaign. In fact, yeah, maybe when we're closer to the Western Reaches coming out, I'll do a future video all about how to run Morzomotha, probably when I've broken it down that way for myself. And from a player's perspective, what kind of things you're going to need to survive down there. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for being here. Hope you've enjoyed this one. If so, give it a thumbs up or a like, and I'll see you guys soon with the next one.